there is nothing in our current foreign exchange regulations that says that people will be jailed or that their dollars will be confiscated. We have not been contacted regarding whether or not some of the clauses that are involved, that are included in the review that is being conducted by the Law Reform Commission. But I'm saying here and categorically that if we are contacted or whenever it becomes an issue for discussion, we will advise against a clause that forbids people from keeping their dollars if they choose to, or a law that says that people should be jailed for keeping foreign currency.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. So fortunately for me, we've got Seun Onigbinde, who's the CEO of Budgets, here with us in the studios. He says he did Formula One driving to get to us here in the studios. Seun, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. Of course, so we're taking a look at the state of state economies. And Lagos State happens to be a very key state for most of these states because you have to, if you're coming into Lagos, so you're coming through the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you've got major arteries out of Lagos, you've got the ports here, you've got Lagos being the commercial hub, so everybody is doing business here. So let me just quickly ask you, I know that we've had conversations about it, but what do you make about this whole transport system out of Lagos, how you have to truck or you convey your goods out of Lagos upward inland to the other parts of the country?
I think we're not strategic enough because there's no reason why we can't have a port to rail, a rail to the port system and take that up inland. Because clearly, that's what most developed economies do. You don't use large-scale trucks to move things around. It's a problem, and that's why you need. And for safety reasons, for environmental reasons, for the road, it's not okay. So I think we need to find a way to take rail down to the port and bring it down to the inland places. The trucking system that we're using now is too chaotic for what it is, and that's why you find out that every axis or every artery of Lagos that has to do with the exit of the trucks is always a crisis. And I think Lagos State government has an opportunity now, interestingly, if it counts for anything, the political, they should just align with the political system, with the federal government, and ensure that there's a real-time and a sustainable solution to that. But I don't think we're not doing it right this way.
Okay, so this is like a downtime for most of those companies that are in one of the country that have to rely on Lagos for them to exit most of their goods and services, and that has affected how they do business and how much they generate, and keeping, of course, their staff together. We've seen a reduction completely of, in the last couple of months, reducing staff strength and the rest of it. So taking a look at the states, let's start, for instance, with their internally generated revenue. I know the budget very recently did a state of the state fact sheet. Could you just take us through it?
So what you find that again is Lagos is still the stellar performer of when it comes to internal generated revenue. For Lagos is gradually building its own sustainable economy that is even outside the federal government or entire crisis, because the federal government revenues is still grossly hugely tied to oil. But you find that Lagos 78.5% by on record comes from the internal generated revenues, and so and also Lagos takes close to 30% of the entire value-added tax that's shared by states. Also because the biggest consumption happens here in Lagos. So there's an opportunity that Lagos is gradually building an ideal economy of what a state should build in Nigeria, where you are self-dependent and where you are sufficient to a certain level. But most of the other states, if on the second you find Ogun is also doing well. Ogun was the biggest mover in terms of IGR for last year, according to data released by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. And it also comes from the fact that they're benefiting more from having a long corridor with Lagos State, which is the key artery of the financial capital of the country. So the Agbara axis, the Osong water axis, axis and even the Ekpe down to the Jebu axis. There's some real benefit that they're getting from staying across to Lagos. And then you have states in the Niger Delta, who are also the top 4 rivers, also having a large cluster of oil companies. Delta, because of Shell presence in Warri. But one thing you find that most states, the core revenue earner is still payee. Payee is still the biggest core, which is that's what the advantage Lagos has. It has a large cluster of formal workers, so it's easier to collect taxes. Even the informal workers in Lagos pay tax. There's an MTCC card they get, and they pay 10,000 naira per year. And so there's a way they found a way to tax them and just levy a flat rate on most of them. But when you go across the parts of the country, the IGR growth rate has been very, very weak, and even some of them actually dipped down. You know, we find states like Kogi, you find states like even Oyo. The IGR actually dipped down because also reflects the mood of the entire country, which is that the growth is actually contracting, and the opportunity even to take revenue of salaries, or take revenue of even maybe road taxes and all of the local taxes they take are actually disappearing. And so it is a core time to think through this effectively. But I think the economies of states within the last 1 year have not improved. I think they've even become more worse. Yeah.
But then that also is, you know, putting into cognizance that most of the states are still indebted in terms of bonds that some of them have actually gone to the capital market to raise, and some actually got the federal government cash bailout recently as well, and then the federal government turned some of their debts into bonds. So just give us an idea. Do you think that the states give us an idea what the state government debt burden really is looking like? Is it improving, or are we at a standstill, or?
It's increasing because Delta, I think for a while in the last administration, the debt figures were suppressed. But the new administration in Delta, the debt first released was 320 billion. So in terms of domestic debt, Delta state is the most indebted state, and that's worrisome because for a state that it's the 3rd largest revenue earner from oil in terms of derivation, why do you also accumulate that size of debt over the 8 years? And is there any capital expenditure that actually justifies that in Delta? States also like Lagos also is also a very highly indebted state, close like over 450 billion naira. But you also look at the capacity for Lagos state to pay. That's very, very evident that it's there. But Delta, and that's why you hear things like states even in the south, Bayelsa, over 120 billion naira, can't pay salaries. And just because over the years you can't really just think through, especially the Niger Delta, why you raise so much, get so much revenue over because you have the 13% derivation opportunity and other opportunity like Niger Delta Ministry, NDDC, and why you also raise that amount of size of debt. Instead to look good is Enugu wants a very conservative position in terms of its fiscal outlook, and salaries are manageable, and it doesn't raise debt. Even Kebbi, even Katsina. So you even find some states in the north where the revenue, where the net facts are around 2 to 3 billion naira in a month, paying salaries. Where you find states which get to 8 to 9 billion naira in the south not being able to pay salaries. So it's clear that sometimes it's become more money, more problem.
Especially as you've seen a continuous reduction in the amount, doled out to these various states every month from the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee. It's not even enough for them to, take care of their overhead, not to talk of the budgets, the debts that they already have as a whole. And this, of course, affects the budgets, in a very, huge way. So, in line with that, how do you think the 2017, because most of the states have already started presenting their 2017 budgets to the various houses of assembly, how do you think that will actually affect the budget size?
I think you expect to see, for any reasonable, you expect to see that the estimations or the projections should be cut down because it's clear that the outlook for the whole market doesn't look promising. These days you're not even too sure that production levels will ever even reach 1 point. As at August, when MPC released report, was around 1.48 million barrels